everybody, I hope you're doing well, and I'd like to take you through in this video the level 2 charging system that we have set up here at our home. And I'll take you through the whole, first off, the economics of the system, how much it costs and how much it saves me. I'll take you through the components, specifications, and then the installation process, and then we'll look at how it works. All right, so let's get started. First off, the economics of level 2 charging. To begin, let's make sure we're understanding what we mean by level 2. With EVs, there are 3 levels of charging. Level 1 is basically charging at home with an adapter provided by the manufacturer of your vehicle. There are adapters that you can buy from other manufacturers. So level 1 charging is using your home power system. It's going to be very slow. It's going to be using only about 15 amps, and you're looking at more than 30 hours to get the car charged, maybe as much as 48 hours or more to get the car fully charged. That's level 1. Level 2 charging system, which is what we have, is using your home system, but some changes. The voltage, if it's not already, has been bumped up to 220 volts, and the amperage has also been bumped up to about 30 amps. And what that means is that the car will charge to full in about 10 to 12 hours, depending on your vehicle and the system, the technology in your vehicle, and how many amps it can take. The Sealion 7 can handle 30 amps at least, so that's not a problem, and it will take 10 to 12 hours to charge to full. So overnight, basically charging to full if you want. And that's the beauty of the home charging system, is that you charge the car at home. You never have to worry about going to a public charging station or getting in line or having to spend time out of your day looking for a charger. And that's what we do most of the time. Of course, yes, when we go on a long trip, we can't do that. We'll have to use the public charging stations, but that's not every day. The long trips don't happen every week even. But yeah, once or twice a month we might do a long trip where, yes, we'll need to charge outside the home. But most of the charging we're doing is at home, which is why we wanted the level 2 charger, just to have that convenience that if we want to, every day we're leaving with a full charge if we want to do that. Truth be known, with the Sealion 7 LFP battery, from the research I've done, it's recommended to avoid high states of charge, unless you need it, of course, but to operate the vehicle with, a 30 to 60% range. And that tends to be what we do, is that we'll charge it to about 60% or so, and then when it gets down to about 20-30%, we'll plug it in and let it charge back up to 60%. This tends to be what we've been doing, and that's, from what I've read, is good for the battery in the long term. But they do recommend also, though, that you charge the car to full, and I think in the owner's manual it says at least 1 time per month. And from what I understand, that's to calibrate the odometer, so when the car is telling you the range that it has remaining, it keeps it more accurate when you've been able to reestablish a full charge, and the battery software has a better understanding of just where we are in the range of power. So that's that. All right, so level 2 charging. Then there's level 3 charging, which is of course what you have at the public charging stations, where you drive in and you plug your car in and you pay some money. And this is high powered DC charging, much higher voltages, very high rates of amps. The cabling that you see there is these big, thick, heavy cables, and they get quite warm because there's a tremendous amount of power being moved into your vehicle. And with these systems, with the BYD Sealion 7, you can charge from 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes. And that'll vary depending on your vehicle and the charger that you're using. 30 minutes is what I've noticed for 10 to 80%, right on. And that's what the specifications say about the Sealion 7 as well, so it lives up to that. So level 3 charging is, you have to take the car somewhere, which we would use on a long trip. Level 2 we kind of use when we need to. And it's not that often, actually. We don't drive a lot, but I would say we're plugging the car in maybe once per week to charge from 20 or 30% back up to 60%. So about once per week is what it's worked out for as at the moment. All right, now continuing on the economics of the system, when we purchased the Sealion 7, part of the promotion was that we would get a home charging system at half the price. And so I looked into what it would have cost me to install the system if we'd not had that promotion. And from what I found online, it came out to be between 50,000 baht, which is 1,300 euro, 1,500 US, I believe. And so I paid about half of that. Now, that's all in, that's everything. The charger itself is maybe half the price. And then you have all the cabling, you have the circuit breakers, ground fault, a whole bunch of components that I'll get to in a minute. So all in price, that's what I'm talking about here. And so I was paying half of that price as of the promotion, right? So now, the other cost we had to incur was that the meter of the home had to be changed. The electricity meter didn't provide enough power. It had to be upgraded. So we had to go to the municipal authority and arrange for that to happen. That cost us about 2,000 baht. That's about 50 euros, 60 US, somewhere in that range. Yes. Then the next thing about the economics to know is that you can sign up for off-peak rates. And in our situation, I think this works out really well because the off-peak rate is a fair bit lower. The regular rate that we pay is about 4.5 baht per kilowatt hour, which is about 14 cents US, 10 cents euro per kilowatt hour. Off-peak rate is, instead of 4.5, is 2.6. Now the off-peak times are not all that convenient. You're talking 10 p.m. until 9 a.m. So it's fairly late at night, 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. And then it does include, though, Saturdays and Sundays are off-peak time, and public holidays are also off-peak time, and like 24 hours a day on Saturday, Sunday, 24 hours a day on public holidays. And there's a fair number of public holidays. So when you factor all that in, it's pretty easy for us to use the off-peak times to charge the vehicle, and that syncs up nicely with how we use electricity at the home too, with running, washing clothes, running the air conditioners. But there's a catch. You have to realize that if you sign up for the off-peak time, your on-peak time rates go up, and they go up to about 6 baht per kilowatt hour, so a 1.5 baht increase. And so that's an incentive for you to avoid using power during the on-peak time. All right, then, so let's compare. How much can I save using a home charger versus charging at charging stations? And how long will it take for the system to pay for itself? So, looking at the numbers, I can see that the lowest price I would pay to charge from 10 to 80% would be at home during off-peak hours, which comes out to 150 baht or 4 euro. Now, compare that to a charging station, where the most I would pay would be to charge 10 to 80%, 457 baht or 12 euro. No, that's a savings of almost 70%. Now, assuming I did this all the time, and assuming I charge at home once per week, then the home charging system would pay for itself in 3 years. Now, that's optimal, I get that. There will be times I need to charge off peak. There will be times I will need to charge at a DC charging station. And then I also have to factor in the higher on-peak rates I would pay at home for running the air conditioners and such. So, although most of that happens during the off-peak time, still, it's reasonable to expect that probably from 5 to 6 years, the home charging system will have paid for itself. All right, now let's talk about the whole installation time frame and what it looked like getting everything set up. So step one was I had to get the meter upgraded from a 15/45 meter to a 30/100 meter. This is single phase power. More on that in a minute. Now, this required a visit to the local municipality, and about 2 weeks after that, a couple of fellows showed up and they swapped out the meters, and they also installed some new cabling that would be able to provide the amperage that we needed. And at the same time, we signed up for the off-peak rates. Then step 2, after the meter had been upgraded, is I contacted the contractor to come and install the system. Now, I had already booked with them earlier, and they said, okay, once the meter has been installed, give us a call. So I did that, and then it was about 3 days, and a crew of about 3 guys showed up, and they worked. It took them about 4 hours to get everything all installed. Now, the contractor we used was the same one through BYD, since this was part of the promotion, and that's fine with us. The contractor was a company that I've done some research on it. They've done a lot of these installations, and very good comments and reports, evaluation of them. So all good. And the charging unit they supplied would be the same unit that the BYD dealerships are using, which gives me a lot of confidence. Now, this is a charger by a company called ZEEDA or ZEEDA, and it came with a 2-year warranty, and I'll show you the operation of it in a little bit. And the fact that these chargers are used by the BYD dealership gives me some confidence, because they get heavy use there and they seem to work. And it also makes me confident that the chargers are going to be very compatible with the BYD charging software. I imagine most chargers are going to work, but there's just that extra layer of confidence that I had that there weren't going to be any issues and it would be literally plug and play. All right, now let's take a look at the specifics of a home charging system. What are the components and what does it look like? So first off, the municipality has laid out a graphic with what the EV charging systems need to look like at home. So once we had a handle on that graphic, we knew exactly what we were getting into. And the system components are, well, the meter, the cabling, the breaker panel, and which includes a 50 amp main circuit breaker, and then a second 40 amp breaker just for the charger, and then a ground fault detector and a grounding rod, and then all of the cabling that goes with that. Let's go through this one by one. First off, the meter. The 30/100 meter allows 30 amps of continuous power, approximately 30 amps, with peaks of up to 100 amp, whereas the default home system was a 1545 system, which, as you can imagine, only provided about 15 amps of power. The main line from the meter into the breaker panel had to be a 4 AWG diameter cable. So AWG is a measurement of the diameter of the cable, maybe even perhaps a 2 AWG cable if your meter is further away from the circuit panel. And this is the blue cable that you see here, and the larger black cables you see coming out of the meter. And then the other 2 cables you see coming out of the meter are the cabling for the home system, which is only 15 amps, and so it's going to be a smaller size cable. And this is why the 2 systems are completely independent and separate from each other. The blue cable from the meter runs through this conduit and into the breaker panel, where there's a 50 amp main breaker, and then a 40 amp breaker which is dedicated for the EV charger. Now, you can see in our system we also added some other breakers. We have an electrical outlet, we have some lighting, we have a security camera that we installed and that are all run off this box, so they also have their own separated dedicated breakers. That was not included in the price of the package. Now, below the breaker panel, we have what's called an RCD breaker. RCD is residual current device, and is essentially a ground fault detector. If there's a short circuit and power is going to ground, this breaker will detect it almost immediately and immediately shut down the system. And then finally, we do have the ground wire. This is a rod that's 2.40 meters long that's driven into the ground, and then the wiring to the circuit breaker panel, and that's all soldered in with heat. And those are the components of the system and how they all go together. The charger itself, we decided to mount it quite close to the circuit breakers to reduce the amount of conduit we would need, and then the charger, of course, came with a 5-meter cable, which makes it easy to reach the charging port on the vehicle. The charger itself connects to the home Wi-Fi system, and there's an app that comes with the charger that is used to control the charger. So once we had synced up the charger with our home Wi-Fi, the next step was to download a firmware update to the charger, which we did. All of this was part of the installation process. I imagine over time there will be further over-the-air updates and the charger will be updated in time. Alrighty, so let's take a look now at how it all works. It's very simple. You just take the connector from the charger and you plug it into the car, as you see I'm doing here. I'm struggling a little bit as I'm holding the camera at the same time. After a few minutes, the green LED on the unit will start to flash, and there's also a message inside the car saying there's a little red icon pops up that says, okay, we are now connected, meaning the car is ready to accept the charge. So, and you'll also notice on the BYD at least, the LEDs beside the charging port will change color. Now, there are two ways to start charging. Actually, more than two. The one way is to tap with an NFC card that came with the charger. They provided two cards, and when you tap, it starts charging. You can also start charging through the app that came with the charger just by clicking on Start Charging. Thirdly, you can do scheduled charging, where you plug in the car and then you schedule a time for the charging to start and to stop. Of course, charging stops automatically when the battery is at 100%. Once you tap with the NFC card, the blue LED lights up and the vehicle starts to charge, and inside the car we can see charging information displayed on the information screen in front of the driver. Now we can monitor the charge through the ZEEDA app, but also through the BYD app. So there are two ways to monitor the charging, and you can also stop the charging through either of the apps. Each app gives slightly different information on the charging status. As I mentioned, you can set a charging schedule through these apps as well. There is also a way to limit the current. If for some reason you didn't want to use the maximum 32 amps, you could set that here. It's pretty idiot-proof, really, and which is what I need. So anyways, that's it, folks. I hope this was helpful, and let me know if you have any comments and questions or suggestions about home charging. For the next video, I think I might head to, there's some ultra-fast chargers being installed at some of the PTT stations in our area, 480 kilowatts, so I'll check that out. And I'm also going to do a video on charging from 10 to 80% and just how long it takes. I found it's about 30 minutes, so I'll do a video demonstrating that, and I'll try to do a video demonstrating that at the slower 120 or 150 kilowatt chargers that they have, but also that higher speed 480 kilowatt charger that I told you about. That's it for now. Take care, everybody. Talk to you later.